Absolutely. Welcome back to the Hip Hop Scholar Podcast, where culture becomes curriculum and hip hop is honored as the living archive that it is. Now, before we begin, I just want to pause and acknowledge the space we're creating here. This podcast has always been about honoring the artists who think deeply, live intentionally, and use hip hop as both expression and examination. Every episode is a chance to slow down, really listen, and recognize the brilliance happening in our culture, often without enough recognition. And today is one of those moments. We're doing more than just interviewing any artist. We're opening up a conversation about craft, consciousness, community, and care. We're talking about what it means to build art with purpose, to study your own life with honesty, and to use music as both a mirror and a map. This is celebration, gratitude, and giving the artists their flowers while they can still be received. Our guest today is a thinker's MC, a craftsman of language, and an architect of meaning. He is known as .com Intelligence, and everything about that name signals intention. This is an artist who approaches identity like methodology, using selfhood, memory, and lived experience as sites of inquiry. When he raps, he's not just telling stories. He's asking questions, building frameworks, and inviting listeners to study themselves right along with him. With .com Intelligence, the track titles read like thesis statements. Projects like Good Omens, Unleashed, Suit and Fez, Helmsman Redux, and Nexus Between Heaven and Hell, and Magnetic Doctrine. These are not just random names, they're more propositions. They're intellectual invitations. Each one says, think with me, look deeper. What if this music is actually theory? Now you can explore .com Intelligence's full body of work through his official link tree, which I'll link here in our description, where everything is beautifully organized in one place. Albums, singles, videos, and social platforms. From there, you can dive into his Bandcamp projects, videos on the YouTube, stream his catalog on major platforms like SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Music, and more. Along with that, catch exclusive drops and follow him on social media and stay connected to those new releases and performances. For .com, culture truly becomes curriculum. Hip hop becomes the classroom, the site of critique, reflection, and liberation. He pulls from history, philosophy, street knowledge, and lived experience, reminding us that scholarship isn't only found in ivory towers. It's in ciphers, studios, block corners, dining room conversations, and late night writing sessions. And then there is the rhythm, that cadence, the way that .com Intelligence structures his flow. With him, rhythm becomes reasoning. The cadence itself thinks. The way he moves through patterns, breaks, pauses, and emphasis, all of that is truly intentional, as well as an intellectual tool. So today, more than an interview, this is a conversation about lineage, craft, discipline, and purpose. This is about honoring our artist who treats the mic like a site of study and treats listeners like co-owners. We are grateful, we're listening, and we are most definitely celebrating. So, Hip Hop Scholar family, I'm honored to welcome .com Intelligence to the platform.
Honor and a privilege. It's an honor and a privilege. Thank you, Hip Hop Scholar Melanie. Thank you ever so much. I truly appreciate that. That means you were listening. Um, that's yes. Thank you. I totally appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely want to give those flowers, give that reverence, especially when we talk about the scope of the scholarship, the thought process in which you put music together over the years. You have been an artist for a number of years, a decade at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I don't even think about it like that. But yeah, that's the truth, and it's a
Hmm.
backstory with that we can get into. But yeah, you're right. I've been intentional with the work. Um, it's I don't even think about it. It's amazing that you said that because you're right. 2012 is when I resurrected again as this incarnation and really went for it, and that was me in my early 30s. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's a long story with me, but yes, you're right. Thank you. I don't think about it because, as Chris said, Kara's one, hip hop rap is something that you do. Hip hop is something that you live, and
There you go.
I, certain people are compelled to do it, even if no one listens. Um, keeps sanity for me, keeps me in tune, keeps me out of trouble. It kept me out of trouble. Now I know better, but the discipline of doing it, doing the art form, um, the MCs know it's a it's a thing that you have to do, whether somebody hears you or doesn't hear you, to write and construct and let your thoughts out. So yeah.
Absolutely. And no, we have the time to unpack. Let's talk about that resurrection. So 2012 is when you were resurrected. Let's start from there. Let's begin. My first question, hopefully that can elude us into this conversation and taking time to unpack that. So when did you fall in love with hip hop? What is the lineage of beginning with falling in love with hip hop and then becoming part of the hip hop history as you have and continue to do so now?
Gotcha. So, the message by Grandmaster Flash and Furious Five, Melly Mel's verses on the message. The message was the first time that I heard it. I I heard Rappers Delight, and it was a party jam, and it was great. Everyone like during that time. I was still young, but the message really hit. The message was from that first stanza, "Broken Glass Everywhere." That completely blew me away. Listening to that song, uh, that was like my first. That's my first into the song. Like that's my first time that I heard it, and I became enthralled with it. And during that time, I was still young, so when I really fell in love
Oh, we're
was
having some technical
actually hearing
issues.
Public Enemy for the first time. And it's funny because during the time that I heard Public Enemy, it wasn't Yo Bum Rush's show. It was A Nation of Millions. It was A Nation of Millions that takes A Nation of Millions to hold us back. Between that and KRS One's My Philosophy, and if you know your timeline, that's during the golden era,
Mhm.
which is technically the second golden era, the second time hip hop is resurrected. Um, but that was the time that everything blew up, and that was the change in the sound too. It wasn't the party jams from Busy B, and like even though Kumo D was into that point, but it was a certain type of style that was there. And when that first battle rap happened between Kumo D and Busy B, that's when it changed, and that's when the flows and stuff, and also the beats and everything, it kind of elevated into a whole nother situation. But um, the message was my first song that I fell in love with. But when I really wanted to do it was hearing Chuck and KRS One. That was a fact.
Fantastic. That is a great start there. That's such a contrast there, a comparative analysis. When you think of Rapper's Delight and the message, Rapper's Delight again, very sing-songy, upbeat type beat, and then with the message, don't touch me because I'm close
I'm
to
close
the
to the
edge.
edge.
Right.
Yeah,
And that did bring about such a difference in how hip hop coalesced or started growing into different facets. I actually I'm still writing this publication based off of that 1981 um, battle between Busy B and Kumo D, because Busy B, when he started it, it was very, again, sing songy, much like Rappers Delight, still had the respect there, but Kumo D's his cadence was very much so contrasting. It was more targeted, more directed, more like what we see today in influence rappers like Kendrick Lamar. And I've also sent newer artists, very new generation artists, to hear artists like Kumo D, because that's where it came from. 1981 started that
gotcha.
for this, where we are today. So I really appreciate you sharing that history as far as where you began. So when that occurred, and this is like 80s right here, like 80, early
Hmm.
80s in that
Yeah.
golden era. So then let's go into the 90s for you. Because again, I want to get into this resurrection that happened in around 2012. So the 90s, what was that for you? How did hip hop affect you in that time frame?
Well, that by that time I was, that's of course the '90s technically leads into the third. renaissance that was there. Between when when Illmatic hit, when into Wu Tang, when Tribe after People's Instinctive Travels, when Tribe hit with what is it, guys? My mind, Low End Theory. Well, Low End Theory, like that changed everything. So that really had my get up and go and trying to rap. But if you know, rap is 70% confidence. I wouldn't even say maybe 80% confidence. You got to believe what you're saying, and you got to believe that you can do it, and you will get tested if you think if you're not knowing that you're there, even if you're somewhat, even if your skills are not up to par, you got to believe what you're saying, because if not, they'll know and they'll be like, please pass the mic, get off the stage, or get out of the cipher, or they'll bully
Mhm.
you out of the cipher. Um,
Right.
that made me want to rap, and I was doing it, but I was still kind of scared um, because I didn't think I was good. It's funny. I always think about Ka, bless the dead. Like Ka is one of my heroes um, because like Ka has a similar story where you know that you want to do it, but you know you're not good enough, and or you think you're not good enough. So you try to go back and perfect what to do, and like I remember trying to. I knew that I was always dense. I knew that I learned some of the technical things. Let me shout out because my hometown. I'm from Maryland, DMV area. That's where I'm originally from. DC is like right. I was right there. I lived right on the line of DC. So there was a thing called Freestyle Union. Tony Blackman, who is a poet and a rapper, she used to have Freestyle Union, and I remember I was able to go there maybe 2 times, and in those 2 times, I really got schooled and really learned that you've got to know you got to get better because it was very they were accepting of you, but they would put pressure on you like it because
Hmm.
everything had to be like you had the rap, even if it was and it was mostly freestyle. And yeah, it's funny because I remember that, and it's like I knew um, that I was good at writing because the power of the word has always been there. Like I said, the message is what kind of was always there. But I knew I was good at writing, but I knew I had to get better and work at it. You know what I'm saying? And it's been
Hmm.
iterations of it. I'm still like with anybody that does it, you never get to a certain point. Even the ones that are really good, technically you're always working. And I learned that I didn't realize it at the time, but like I like crafting stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like word wise, crafting stuff. And it's just weird because like I said, there was a point in time I was getting somewhat decent. I ran with this group called 13th Floor. Um, I don't know where Lunchbox is, but that was the part of the rhyming partner that was there. Um, it was a group called 13th Floor. I was the odd one out, but Mike, who was Lunchbox, the rapper, brought me in. I was his friend. We had a major falling out. I haven't spoken to him in a long time. I mean, a real long time. But like earlier, he was always rapping. You know what I'm saying? He was doing the back in the day, like I'm jumping, but there was a whole lot of key styling. This was the early 90s leading into 2000s, where people would freestyle, but they'd be typing and it'd be like text battles. I was a decent typer, but I never learned how to really type well. Like now I know how to type, but I really like to get the thought out and to type it was there. But I always would like say the rhymes and write the rhymes, and I just like I remember Mike was like, "Yo, you know what I'm saying? You, you're unorthodox. You know what I'm saying? You think outside the box. You're unorthodox. Come on, and we got cool that way. Um, but yeah, man, we performed a little bit of shows there. Um, in the DMV. Shout out to YU. I hope he gets better. Anybody that knows the DMV, I'm going into my history, but the DMV had a big thing around Georgia Avenue and all of this where, before Wale blew PG County, DMV, Virginia, well, part of Virginia, because Richmond's its
Hmm.
own entity. But before that blew up, before Wale blew up, there was a big community in dealing with and some of the artists are still around. So it's like I said, YU, who had who's been was a car in a car accident, and he's finally getting back to it. Gosh, it was the Thundercats, K Beta. It's a lot of like dope artists. Infinite Loop. It was a lot of dope artists that were back in the day because it was a burgeoning scene at the time, and I was able to
Mhm.
experience some of it. The Remains, which is YU's group back in the day. But I knew that I wasn't there. Like I would try to, go and do the open mics, but I would watch how the quote unquote masters, even though they were like my age or a little bit older, were up there doing it,
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
never felt like I was good enough. So I eventually stopped. I eventually stopped, and it wasn't until 2011, where
Okay.
was it 2011 leading into 2012. It was. I always say this, and I have no problem with saying it. Shout out to this rapper called You Never Know. You never know. I was in school. Well, I just finished school in Baltimore because I went to Copper State University, and I rolled back up to Baltimore because I was fiending for like to go to a hip hop show, and I would go, but you know what I'm saying. I just be a fan and younger cat because he's a little bit younger than me, but you'll never know. Baltimore MC was doing great things. This should be his year. Um, I really appreciate that. But his group, Magnetic, performed. And I don't know what it was. Like seeing his energy or whatever, something said, you know, I don't know if I can curse, shit to get off the pot. Like you're losing time.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah. You're losing time. So it's like you have to go forth and just put it out there. Now by this time also, it was blessings because Nas was still rapping, Jay Z was still rapping, Sean Price
Mhm.
was still rapping, and they were older. You know what I'm saying? So that was
Mhm.
the beginning of quote unquote the renaissance of mostly the MCs that everyone likes being at a certain age in their mid 30s to late 30s, leading into that. Because as we know, hip hop is kind of ageist and it's ageist in this system, but we've been programmed that way. It's always a young man sport, but technically, if you look at it, every master is of a certain age that everyone says, "Wow," of skill.
Mhm.
If you're going to it now, like every master of the craft is of a certain age or is moving toward that age. Kendrick probably
Mhm.
being the youngest out of that, but Kendrick is in his late 30s, going into his 40s. Black Father's in his 40s. Um, During that time, Jay Z is in his 50s. Nas is in his 50s.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
Khalil Salam is probably in his 50s or late 40s. I'm in my late 40s. So it was something that was there. Like I said, you'll never know. It was a spark. And I just said, yo, I gotta try it. I gotta go all out. Like I gotta go all out. I gotta at least try to do it. Now during this time, it's I, it's kind of a skip because during this time, also during 2011, I ended up getting with my cousins, and they were doing this time like right before Jeezy came out, and it was the whole crunk era, but the rap
Mhm.
era. Me and my brother, my brother is 9 years younger than me, and we used to listen to J. Ritter Damager and do the routine of mental stamina. Like we would do it, we would rhyme and do social mischief because he was always around me and I was always playing it. And eventually, I taught my brother how to rap. And in doing that, I ended up getting with my cousin Jamal, who is Jamal the Great, who is in DC now, PG County area. He's a sound engineer. But I taught him how to rap. And it was a whole group. Like we had friends and family. It was a group called Clientele Gang. And Clientele Gang, I was like the monk because I was the older person, but I was the one that actually steered them to a certain thing. They were gonna they had the sound because doing that sound, everybody wanted to be Dipset. The South was really big. You know what I'm saying? With the whole movement of, like I said, Jeezy, Gucci, even before the Amigos. But it was during that time that we were listening to it, and I would play them like we got it for cheap, and they was like, from the clips during that mixtape era. I played them
Mm-hmm.
Benny Siegel's "Wanted Dead or Alive," and they were like, "Wow, what?" You know what I'm saying? So we started really doing music, and I told my uncle at the time, because Jamal, he's always been musically inclined. He plays piano, played for the church and everything. He asked his father, my uncle, he was like, "Yo, can I want to try to record and start recording music." And I told him, I was like, "Yo, why don't you buy Jamal the Roland VS 1880, and he can record his music, and I can, like, help him or whatever, because he said he wants to rap. He also wants to do other music and stuff like that. I'll learn the board." So me and Jamal learned the board, and like Ivan, my brother, would come by, and it became a thing where it was like sanctuary, because I was getting to the point where the energy was so good that we would keep all of the circle out of trouble. Because during that time, we had AC, who was a dope rhymer, but he was in the streets heavy. There was
Yeah.
RCM. He's a producer. He's still starting to do music now, but he was in the streets. Like, they were young kids just in trouble, but they saw what we were doing, because we even like had the makeshift booth, and we would just rap, and we would stay there, and I would be like the chaperone. I remember going to the mothers and being like, "Listen, uh, you know where they at," because I was in my 20s at the time, like mid 20s, married,
Mm-hmm.
get ready to have a child. Oh, my wife hates me for that, but yeah, I was basically shepherding these
Mm-hmm.
guys. Like, I would keep, like, we would stay out of trouble. Like, we would be there from, like, doggone. I get off of work, and it'd be like 8 o'clock, and from like 8 to 1, we'd just be there. And they would come like clockwork. They wouldn't be out in the streets or whatever. They'd be there. Like, and everybody was getting good. Like, everybody was getting good. And it got to the point where we really got good. Like, we, during the mixtape era, we got, it's unknown classes, but we got like 2 mixtapes that were really good. We were even trying to perform them. You know what I'm saying? Because I was just like, I remember how it was when I was performing, and I just give them little tips. But even with that, I was too, I was overtly complex, and I had to learn how to dumb down because of just the way the sound was. Just trying to find a balance of it. And I still didn't have it because I was more rapidy rap. And I never forget what my brother said. My brother was like, you're you're one of the dopest people that I know, but no one's going to hear you because you're people don't want to listen to the words. You got to get them with the flow. If they hear the flow, they'll eventually figure it out and hear what you're saying. But no one's going to initially listen to what you're saying. Because my brother had the flow, like, you know what I'm saying. He had the flow, and he was like, "Terry, I know what you're saying. You school me every time you rhyme, you know, but no one's going to listen to you if you don't have your flow right." And that was a bit of truth, because I was still part of the rapidy rap crew where we were listening.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because there was a point in time where you had to be saying something, or you get booed off the stage.
Right.
You had to have a punch. You had to have a line. You had to connect. But during that time, the shift came, and like I said, with Jeezy and them, it became more really. I hate to say it simplistic, but it was more like people wanted to hear the pockets and the flow. Also, dealing with the South, it was very. You had to kind of have a catchy rhyme style. You kind of
Mm-hmm.
had to be catchy in order for people to be like, "Man, what's going on?" 666, we love 666. I hate saying it like that, but yeah, 3 6 Mafia. We used to listen to them all
Mm-hmm.
the time. Like, my brother actually put me on to them because I hated them at first, and then I started to figure out the genius of it. You know what I'm saying? Nobody can say Project Pat is not genius with the way his flow. Like, that's original. Like, even though he's saying street shit, his flow is what caught everybody. And it's still like people copy that to this day. They can't do it like him, but they still copy it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like I said, it's funny. But during 2012, I decided to go all out because by that time, I learned a little bit about mixing. But Jamal really learned. That's what he really liked, like producing and mixing. So
Mm-hmm.
I did. I don't think it's. Yeah, I don't even know if it's on. I don't even. I know it's not streaming. It's probably on my Bandcamp. But I did my first project called was it Overview? Yeah, Overview was
Okay.
the first thing that I did, and yeah, man, the overview is really dope. But I'm like, it's funny. I hear myself and I hear how better I've gotten. Like I've always kind of like tried to elevate, but like I did overview and I put everything I had into that, and I really had some songs. I still perform to this day if I can. There's a song called Rose Petals, um, that's on it, or is it is it Sovereign? Anyway, there's a song called Rose Petals during the early part of the time, and that's like one of the songs that I really that's like my cornerstone where I really felt like I was good. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's amazing. It's just like it's just doing the work. It's something that I've realized that I had to do. Because at first it was you fall into the trap. Like everybody that does it, you do it because you want to be acknowledged. That's the
Mm-hmm.
main thing. You want to be known. You want someone to acknowledge your worth. Because most of the times, even with hip hop in general, where it's from and how it's based, there were, the power from the street lights made the place dark because there was nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like if you go back when the Bronx and how it started, there was nothing. So people had to express themselves. You know what I'm saying? To survive. I mean, it was really bad. Like people don't realize how bad it was. I remember Khan, some of the older, like graffiti beautified the place. That's how bad it was. Even though they got mad at all the kids doing the graffiti, it was bad because they were burning tenement buildings, project buildings. The landlords were to make the money, and just like it was really effed up. And that's why you do it. You just want to get some acknowledgement that you exist and to express yourself. And that was a big thing. Like that's what most people they out for fame. That's what most people want. I want you to see me. See me. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm you know, that's why our
Yeah.
poses is probably like it is. Why we're like this or like this or like this. Because we want to be seen. We put it bluntly. Niggas want to be seen. So that's where it started from. But then, as you go on, it's like, what are you really doing it for? Like, how can you fully, as Bruce Lee said, to totally express yourself? And I
Mm-hmm.
realized, like, I have to express myself, whether anybody sees me or not. That's my word. Like I have to do it. I realized that I was like, why am I doing this? Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm at a point in time, like, blah blah blah. And even my wife was like, what are you hoping to achieve? And I just like I realized like I gotta do it. It really kept me sane. I realized I saw what it did with my circle, my cousins, the kids in the neighborhood. I saw what it did. I saw how it kept them out of trouble. So it's like, yo, I know that I'm teaching. You know what I'm saying? Even if it's a few students, I'm teaching. For me, it's getting the feedback to get that. That's how the acknowledgement works. It's like, oh, I am making a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you are seeing me. Oh, I can impart this to help you get better at this, which is, that's a whole that's a whole African melanated thing. Like that's what we do. That's technically how we
Mm-hmm.
operate. That
Mm-hmm.
individuality shit, that's a European concept. But 9 times out of 10, as we all are, like we want everybody to be in the loop. If you are walking in step with us, we want you in. That's how most, melanated black people are, to a
Right.
fault. But
That's
it's like, yeah, if you walk this way, you walking with me, come on. You know what I'm saying? Um, But yeah, that was kind of like my thing. And I started like 12. I did my first album, and then I think it's during the point of time of like 13 or 14. That's when I really just went berserk. I did like 3 albums in a row, and I was just
Mm-hmm.
letting all thoughts out. That's when the Swag Golly Hard Body series started. And like I said, hearing Rock Marciano and Sean Price really that clicked. Like that's when I was really trying to go. And then Ka came, and then I was just like in awe about the mastery of it because I was older and I really got what he was saying. Because words have always been it's the word. Like I said, it's what Melly Mel said. It's the word. I'm a very important person. I like the word more than the flow. And I had to learn that you have to balance it in order for people to hear, you have to get the flow. But I'm always in what are you saying? What the fuck are you saying? Like, really? What are you saying? Like, you could be, I hate to knock them, but during that time when DOS Effects came out with the Iggity Bum Stick, didn't that say
Mm-hmm.
anything but fucking nursery rhymes? And it's dope. It's really dope. But
Yeah.
what are you saying? You know, and I remember like I fell into it too. But then like when people started calling them out, I was like, don't disrespect DOS like that. But people were like, yo, man, these niggas ain't saying nothing. They just rhyming nursery rhymes to get over. So yeah, you know, that's part of it. But I've learned to never knock and critique, um, because everything is there's different styles. I always try to. I'm even with grown men and my boys. It's like, yo, I understand that there are different levels. There are all type of different levels to it. Just because someone
Mm-hmm.
is overtly technical does not take away from what a person that's not lyrical that can still be effective because what he
Right.
says is all about what you say. Is what are you saying? And if you're saying it and it resonates and it's basic rhyme form, you're gonna adapt to it. Like people are gonna hear it. Like you can really be setting up words and constructing and all this other stuff, which is great. Like I said, if you can do that, that's fine. But I'm never gonna knock a person that's like that basically I always say there are levels to it. There's like DMX, there's like Tupac and DMX. That's a straightforward style. It's
Mm-hmm.
just straight. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I'm not gonna hit you with a metaphor. I'm not going to, you know what I'm saying, set up the word for the other word to make the punchline. It's just
Mm-hmm.
straightforward. That's highly
Mm-hmm.
effective. But then for the people that want it, you know what I'm saying? You got high technical rhyming, which is like, Lupe, which is like you really got to listen to what Lupe is saying. Or you have Black Thought. And Black Thought is, like I said, Black Thought is more so like I always say that Black Thought is a great, technically, no one can outrhyme Black Thought, right?
Hmm.
Technically, and that's just because of what he's in that master category. When I say that, I say
Right.
technically because I believe that, but there's a certain type of category that most people fall into, and he can like technically he can do everything of rap. He can do typewriters. He can do all this type of stuff. Mickey Fax is one of them. Daylight is one of them. Like there are certain people that are really good with rhyming, and they can like they know how to like construct, but it takes nothing away from like Bruiser Wolf or E40, who is their style is their style, and they are still dope as hell. E40 is God. You know what I'm saying? Even though, but no, E40 is like I remember I was on E40. I heard E40. I practiced looking hard or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't get it, but I know it's dope as hell because this
And,
is
and
something
it's
else.
it is unmatched. And I want to jump in because you've given such a prolific lecture when it comes to all of the nuances of the hip hop tradition and really those Africanisms. Like, and I want
Yeah.
to unpack everything you just said because I've listened and I appreciate you giving that full on history. Like, my goal for this podcast is to learn from my guests. And so,
Mm-hmm.
that griot tradition, when you had taken those young people from 8 to 1 and letting their parents know, they're going to be taken care of, you were really promoting that griot tradition of storytelling and sharing that information and making certain that they were able to share their stories as well. And that's that instinctual, like you said, what melanated people have, that Africanism of wanting to do just that. And that's exactly what you've done with all of the mentions of different rappers. Again, we are praying for YU to be doing better. And then I really like that name. You don't even know. Is that the name of that artist?
You'll
You
never
don't.
know. You'll
You'll
never
never
know.
know. Okay.
You'll never
So
know.
all of these artists that you have mentioned, and whether they have the quote unquote notoriety as on MTV or BET or just in that DMV area, we still give reverence to that. And my goal, as the hip hop scholar, is to create that history. This is what we call classical music. This is
Yeah.
truly classics where we can learn from it, we can grow from it, and like you were saying too, being able to reflect on what you've done and can actually hear yourself getting better. And we could talk about E40. Shout out to E40 because his style unmatched.
Mm-hmm.
Jay Z, Nas, DMX, even DOS Effects, and some of it being performative for the
Yeah.
audience, but that's also the reason why I feel like artists like yourselves, you stay independent so you don't have to rely on that performative piece where you have people telling you how to sound and what to look like, when it's that natural, you know, sharing of experience and using that methodology to put together and share out a story and to learn from and to share from. So your brother telling you about the flow, because it did become performative around that time where it went
Mm-hmm.
from, what you say, rapidy rap, but then it went into trying to get into this particular beat and have this particular sound to sell. But
Right.
what if we were able to take out that monetary value and just focus on the griot tradition itself? We can focus on those pillars of hip hop and be able to share out in that intelligence, to share out in that confidence building. And I really appreciate how you talked about at the very beginning, where, being able to freestyle and even key styling, you have to have such confidence. And how do you build confidence? And I'm not talking about just confidence in music, but just in general as a person in our global society. How is a person supposed to build confidence? You got to jump in the double dutch. You got to start jumping in that in the jump roping, maybe get hit by it a couple of times, or get talked down to. But like you said, they embrace you to come in, but that force was there for you to grow, for you to be better. And so when you were talking about freestyling, it's much different than how it is today, where you have a freestyle battle and then they have their cell phones there and they're reading off of what they've written. And
Right.
there is a caveat between freestyle from the brain, coming from the dome,
Right.
versus having that written poetry or that written rhythm on a text. But you've taken this, you gave us such a great history.com about those nuances that brought you back to who you were from the very beginning. Music does not have to be about monetary gain or even popularity, although we want to be seen. We got the B-boy, B-girl poses. We want to be able to have our name on billboards. But in all essence, though, the artists that I've had the beautiful opportunity of talking to, doing hip hop is like breathing. It's not something that you really could do without. So I want to ask you, and I want to talk about you, the artist. Like, there are many
Mm-hmm.
artists that we can give reference to, but my
Right.
goal today is to give reference to you.com
Right.
intelligence,
Okay.
and to see about what was life like when you did take a step back. I know you were in college. I know you were, doing other things, but
Mm-hmm.
in that time frame when you went to that show, when you went to go see that artist perform on the stage,
Mm-hmm.
before that, do you, I mean, what was that thought process? And I think you talked about it just a little bit, but the hyper focus there, when you took the time to step away from hip hop, and then the time when you step back into it, that era, that blur of an era, what was that like?
Yeah.
Because no matter the age of the performer, it's all about what's who you are and what you are, and hip hop is truly who you are. So talk to me about, and talk to us, the Hip Hop Scholar family, about what
Yeah.
life was like without hip hop, and is that something you would ever do again?
Um, it was like it basically. if you want to equate it, it's like when Jesus went to the wilderness before he came back,
Hmm.
where you are. It was a weird space because you deal with responsibility. Of course, I ended up having a child, and it was just during that time it was weird because it never left, but I didn't think of it as me trying to do it. I didn't even think I was worthy to do it. I just wanted to be a fan because it was the music that I grew up with. But it was just a weird time. It was a time of being responsible, and you just kind of like you beat yourself down of what you want to do because you somewhat kowtow and think that you need to be in a certain way. You know what I'm saying? But
Hmm.
eventually, like I said, in just doing it, I couldn't leave it alone. Like I would listen to it, but it was I never thought of doing it, even though I was doing it. But it was like, nah, you know, I would write certain like like I guess you would say just certain lines or like middle poems or something like that. Like I was always writing, but I just was like, nah, it's done. I'm done. You know,
Hmm.
I'm, it was just being in the wilderness, and it's funny because during that time, I maybe it really got me to get my, I guess, pen better because, like I said, I would write, I would really work on writing, really work on trying to make my idea like I would work on the I guess the craft of it. Like I would be like, you know, 4 lines here, maybe 8 bars, and it'd just be like, oh, okay, let me just write this. I have the beat going and I'll listen to that and I'll be like, no, that's whack. or I'm getting a little bit better. Or then I start being like, well, how can I chain? Because I call it chaining. I'll be like, how can I chain this idea to this idea? All right, let me use this idea, but I got to make the word rhyme. Okay, I'm trying to get this idea here. I'm trying to say this. I got to make the word rhyme. Oh, that's horrible. Oh, I made it work this time. Huh. I
Hmm.
made it work again. Oh, I'm getting a little better at this. Hold on. I can do this. Let me think about this. Like, oh, so during that time, it was just like, it probably was shaping me and I didn't realize it because I never stopped. It was just more so like, even if there was no beat, I would be writing like poetry and poems because it's the same. Technically, it's the same thing. It's more so
Hmm.
the variable is you saying it in rhythm. Even though poetry is in rhythm too, but you can go out of rhythm and staccato rhythm. Inside of the beat, you have to be in rhythm in order for it to flow and make it sound good. Like poetry is free flowing because you can do any type of cadence. You can go anywhere with it because it's just you and
Hmm.
your words and the voice. But
Right.
learning how to do that and write to a beat, that's how I kind of got better because I was like, I'm always writing, so I'll be like, okay, this sounds good by itself. This is just strong words by itself. Like if I say this to somebody, they'll be like, oh wow, that's really deep. But can I make it work on this? Can I make it work to this beat that's going across here? I gotta shorten up the word. Oh, what word could go with this word? I've got a longer meaning, but how can I make it shorter? How can I be effective in doing this with the beat? So it was just I would just do that all the time. Like I would just be like writing poetry, and then okay, yeah, this is dope, but there's no way that this would fit. Or let me say it and see if I can make it fit. Oh no,
Hmm.
no, that's got to change this. So it's funny. Lupe Fiasco. I bring that back because he on YouTube he showed the course that he taught, teaching how the like literally how to rap. Because of course, since it is a griot tradition, a tradition that you just do it, the systems of doing it, which is kind of like it scared me because I wanted to apply to the school, but then I was like, even at my time with what I do, I was like, oh,
Hmm.
I don't think I'm ready for the workload. But yeah, the system of doing it, we don't have definitions for it. We just do it. You know what I'm saying? And we just do it, and that's how you learn. You learn by doing it. But of course, there are certain things. a kid on the street, like when Meek Mill was rhyming back in the day, or when I was rhyming back in the day, I didn't know nothing about simile or metaphor. You just knew it because you heard it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You didn't know anything about compound rhymes. You didn't know anything about the structure. Yeah, that's school stuff, but you don't equate it to that. And even now,
Mhm.
I don't think of that, even though I may be doing it. Like for people that now analyze rhymes, it's like, oh, this. I'm just thinking of how can I get my idea? How can I get my idea across making words rhyme? And that's always been the case for most melanated kids that are doing it, or any kid that's doing it. They're not thinking about the structure of it. I know I'm building, but I don't know I don't know the technical dissertation of it. Like somebody that
Mhm.
tells me, "Oh, you know what? You use this here and this here." I'm amazed by that. Like I sent one of my rhymes off to be analyzed, and it's like, "Wow, that's what that
Mhm.
was." And like
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
deep stuff. The words sometimes that you just don't hear of the English language, and it's amazing. Also, I know I'm jumping the gun, but how great is it that we're using stolen, bastardized language because American language steals from every other culture.
That's right.
We're using that and taking words that should not fit, that's been stolen from all type of different places, to make it fit to get an idea across. And
Mhm.
also using the word or using the definition of the word, changing it, being able, like a young kid taking a word and just like making the meaning of the word that's the original meaning, but then flipping it and using it again. Like that's amazing
Mhm.
to me. Like that really is amazing. It's just that, like I said, most we don't know the technical side of it, so we can't really give it European, in European eyes, credit or worth because we don't know the technical. We're doing it because you just do it, but we don't know
Mhm.
that. Like I said, you have to be validated. That's amazing that
Mhm.
Kendrick ended up winning the Nobel. Like it's amazing for it because the work that he was doing was incredible, and it's great that it was honored. I don't think we'll see that again in this administration right now and those things. But what he did is amazing, and it's just kind of giving validation because it's what Rakim and everybody was doing even back then.
Mhm.
Like if anybody that was doing it, but it was quote unquote ghetto music or whatever. But technically, of how the words are being said and the thoughts that are being projected inside of a rhythm with rhymes, that is that is not easy to do. It's not easy to do at all. Like it's not. We don't the magic of it. We take for granted of the craft. And as I said, this it is go back to my album Abracadabra. That's what it is. You know, I manifest and
Mhm.
create what I speak. That's the term of abracadabra, and that's what it is. It is a craft. It is you are spelling.
Hey,
You
I
are
want. I
spelling.
want to. I got to jump in right there. You said something so profound when you talked about, and I've seen those reels where you have the people unpacking the music and saying, "Oh, they did a simile, they did a metaphor," but in
Mhm.
essence, I feel like that when someone that truly is an MC, that truly is about the music, they're not thinking about those technical terms. Like it's,
Mhm.
for example, when you were speaking, it was like when the melanated people put together the pyramids. They weren't just sitting up there trying to do geometry or putting those things together like in a technical sense. It
Yeah.
was more so that magic, that manifestation, and then with the deductive reasoning, yeah, you can break it down and make it fit into a description. You can make it fit into some type of a definition. But in all actuality, I don't think that any of those artists, any of those people who are breaking down the music and saying this person did a simile here, a metaphor here, and so on and so forth, the writer didn't touch that. The writer was writing. They
No.
were
Mhm.
a vessel of a message that needed to be shared, and that's what occurred. That inductive reasoning that created the song or created the message was something that can't be taught, and it's something that we can definitely revere to. Whenever I am as a college professor, when I'm teaching concepts to students, I share with them that these concepts aren't new. I'm not giving you anything that's brand new. What I'm having you to do is realize that this has always been around you. This has always been there. I'm just giving you a name and a connection so you can understand it a bit better. So, like with logical
Right.
fallacies, like that people lie to you, right, in so many different facets, but now you have a tool to understand how they are and to protect yourself, right? And to enhance yourself.
Right.
So, that sparked my interest when you stated that, because when they built the pyramids, it wasn't because of geometry, it was because what was in them. It was because of what they wanted to manifest
Right.
and create in a beautiful way. And then when you were talking, .com, about when you were away from the music, it sounded to me, I had a friend who has since passed away, shout out to the love and legacy of Stanley Francis. He made a comment one time, and he was a DJ too. He was a music DJ. And he made the comment about cigarette smoking. He said if people never really truly quit smoking cigarettes, what they do is that they take a break in between, right? You may do the you may end up, so on and so forth, but you always will end up coming back into that love, that addiction, almost that habit that you've had. So
Yeah.
seeing yourself.com intelligence, and I'm looking here at your SoundCloud right now, 12 years ago, Big Nuts Earth Movers, The Paradoxical State, your boy Fuse, and so Braza, all the time, 11 years and years ago, and then you still creating music to this day. That gives the timelessness of what hip hop absolutely is. And my necessity, and I mean a serious urgency, is for people to realize that there is no cap when it comes to creating a message and having that information. So having MCs like yourself and like Suko Jones with Khalid Salim and all the rappers,
Mm-hmm.
you all give the younger generations an opportunity to see who they can absolutely be. And you become these giants. I see all the time on social media, oh, this person has passed away, this person has passed away. And they were giants in what they were doing, but it's time for us to step into that realm. People like Samuel L. Jackson and Vera Wayne, they didn't get their notoriety until they were in their 40s and in their 50s when they got
Yeah.
their they when they received popularity, but they had already been invested in the game for decades. And even if, because
Right.
I've seen even on Kevin Cooks, he's another artist that I've interviewed, to create, to be creative. It's not about the money, because once you do it for the money, then you strip all creative essence. You're not able
Right.
to still be creative. You're not able to be who you are. And like you're saying, .com, hip hop is who you are. It's who you've
Right.
always been. It's who you've been trying to help others to realize of themselves. And so, like bringing it back to Lupe Fiasco, hip hop saves lives. It has saved my life and many other people's lives.
Yeah.
Being able to create, to listen, to hear these messages, and when I interview younger, like 2020, and they were born in 2010, and now they're
Mm-hmm.
rapping now, and to introduce them or to hear them say, "Oh yeah, I've listened to Outkast," and being introduced to these artists for the first time, we think about how the historical relevance of what you've done, because even for you, you have this catalog that and again, this will be posted in the descriptions, but also I compel you.com to really get into that lecture. I know you do like the intentional Mondays on your platform, and I encourage you to
Yeah.
absolutely do so
Intent
and
Mondays.
have
Yeah.
intent Mondays, and to have them to really go back and listen to this music and listen to these messages, because this is the classical music. These are the classics. This is no longer Shakespeare time frame. Whatever administration will be there, what is in existence, and what how the tides are changing, is that hip hop is truly what changes the people. New York showed that with their new mayor. He's a hip hop artist himself, and even in his inauguration speech, he quoted Jadakiss, and really making it clear that hip hop is everywhere. It's in everyone, but it doesn't have to fit in this box. And that's what I want for people to realize, is that we can place it into curriculum, but it's what you said at the very beginning of this interview.com, is that building that confidence of self. Do you think that you would be the confident person to create music and to give Intent Mondays and share out with people? Do you think you would be able to do that with any other genre?
Nope.
Probably not.
Nope, not at
No
all.
other genre could absolutely touch that. And so that is the beauty of hip hop. That is where, especially when you went through the history. Yeah, I have my questions, which I invite you to come back into another episode for us to unpack this. Because,
Yeah,
one question that I have
mm-hmm.
is that when people look back at your catalog years from now, what conversation do you hope that they're having about .com intelligence? When they go into the SoundCloud, when they go into the Apple and Spotify, and they see all of these different music from pre-COVID to post-COVID, what do you want people to take away when they hear this music?
That's a good question. I would state that I try to do as my forefathers before me. I try to teach. I try to teach. I try to give insight to where I always say, it's funny with the Intent Monday, I always say long live the fighters, because as Prodigy said, there's a war going on outside no one is safe from. You can run, but you can't out forever. We're constantly in a perpetual state, be it macro or micro, of fighting. You're fighting to you're fighting for acknowledgement, you're fighting for existence, you're fighting to be able to you're fighting to be able to be free and know thyself, which it always goes back to it. I just try to make sure that I am, I guess, like I said, teaching. Teaching has been the main thing. For I'm fucking dope. I'm dope. You know what I'm saying? That's part of it. Like I said, that's that knowledge want to be seen. Like I am dope. Like I've worked hard to craft some great art. And that's the funny thing. Like I've finally gotten to the point where I realized that my art may not be appreciated till later on. So when I'm gone, it may be something that's like, hey, this person did this song, which is part of hip hop anyway, because that's how we find samples. We find artists that we never
Mm-hmm.
heard before, or black art form that was there, a soul song, a prog rock song, something that we've never heard before. And it's like, wow, that was done at this time. Someone was saying
Mm-hmm.
this at this time. The expression was done at this time. Oh wow, it's still the same. Or
That's right.
man, it's I didn't know about this insight. I can relate that to this.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I try to do. I, I just want to be able to, like I said, fully, as Bruce Lee, fully express myself and create something that will outlast me. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be acknowledged, or to have you know that I existed. And I try to do the best. I think that's what every artist, if you're really an artist, if you're not out there trying to get rich, which is like that's been a whole thing we've been co-opted. But anybody trying to do art is trying to at least be like, listen, at this point in time, I did this. I want you to acknowledge this, and I put time and effort for it to last. So, like, acknowledge it. You know what I'm saying? Acknowledge it.
Right.
Um, and I'm like I said, I'm really working hard. I, and I'm gonna say this, 'cause I work hard to make dope shit. Like I know for a simple fact that I've got at least close. I came close. I've got about three almost close, near, not near perfect, but very close. Like anybody that takes the time to listen, I know for a fact, between the fact that I did like Abracadabra, Precipice, and Purpose, I know they were good. Like I know, I like know for a fact, like everything that I put into that thing, from the artwork to me, searching the artwork, me doing that, I know because I've labored over it. So the process of me doing it, I don't do it just to kind of bang stuff out. I did that at one point in time, but now I'm just trying to make stuff that at least by the time I'm done or by the time I pass away, it's just like, oh, okay. During this point in time, did you ever hear this artist? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like I know I got like three of them. I'm working on the fourth one, trying to at least make it there. But the goal is to teach. The goal is always to teach. Goal is to teach to be able to have someone to hear. Because if you listen to my music, like I said, I'm bragging. I've got all type of the regular staples, but I'm I don't rhyme for the sake of riddling. I don't. I don't rhyme for the sake of riddling. When I heard, as I said, when I heard the message, it's always about a point of view or letting you know about something that's happening during that time. Um, because the times we're in as of right now, like you know, me being in my me being in my 40s, technically Culture Cipher, I made the song Culture Cipher rapping. Um, I've seen it. You know what I'm saying? Like I grew up in the crack era, and it's like now I, I've lived a little bit, so it's like now I'm pointing it out. Like you know what I'm saying? Like I
Mm-hmm.
have the wherewithal and I have the bandwidth and the knowledge to point it out. So like the song like Memorabilia, have on You May Die, where it's talking about like how America violence weighs in apple pie. I'm equating that to the memorabilia. Like it's America's memorabilia is violence. You know what I'm saying? And it's like it's injustice and it's class. You know what I'm saying? It's always been a caste and a class system. Race is always a trigger, but it's all about the have and the have-nots. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but like I said, I touch on a lot of things. I try to make sure that you know, uh, me being melanated. I don't like to use the word black, but however you want to call it, however you identify. Um, I have a song called "Nigga on a Tightrope," and it's talking about exactly how it feels and what happened to Jonathan Majors. Like you're walking a tightrope. Nigga is on a tightrope. Like all it takes is one thing for you to fall out of favor, and then it's like, hey, throw him in jail or get rid of him. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I've always tried to walk that line. I really try to make things make sense in dealing with what I'm teaching, what I am, what I've acknowledged, and what I've gone through. And I think that's always been the case. Like I said, in Intent Mondays, I need to actually start talking about my rap history more because I have a wealth of knowledge. I'm a historian too,
Yes,
but
I
I'm
agree.
normally
I agree.
I'm I'm normally talking about like common stuff to help anybody that's listening, be it whatever age you are. Because I mean, I've
Mm-hmm.
lived a little, and I think I have a perspective. You may feel it, you may not, but I try to like, you know, what's your intent? I try to make sure that I am giving an intent about what's going on with me. So that's my big thing now. I really am going to try to, now that you said it, like not only intent Monday, but I'm going to try to get out there and talk more because it needs to be documented. Um, I always say, and I'm leading into my new album that eventually I'm going to be doing. I was say what's sacred because now they're trying to erase everything. So
Yes.
it's like basically you've got to say what's sacred. Whatever, however you can do it, whether it's digital, whether it's writings, whatever it is, because they're erasing a lot, and it's like you don't realize it for the damage that it's going to cause within the next 40 years. So, like
Right.
your history, whatever you have, whatever is sacred to you, you have to save it and archive it and acknowledge it because, like I said, it's going to be a point where when people find out about it, they're going to be like, it really existed because they wiped it away. And they're
Mm-hmm.
doing it on mass scale. So, however you can, you know, that's the reason why I'm doing it too. Like, you know, it may be it may be quote unquote as people say if you want to I don't think negative but people like well I use it it's futile Instagram blah 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 it doesn't matter as long as somebody gets it as long as somebody gets it they can be in the fight that's why I say long live the fighters you know so
Well said. Absolutely well said. And building this legacy and sharing of that, I definitely encourage you to continue to make a balance, to share the history and still,
yeah
do those intent Mondays to give those messages and finding that balance. And that's exactly what this podcast is growing to be, is a space for the people as well as academics in such a scholarly, merited way that it does last, where they can't erase what's academically placed there in academia. Right along there with Shakespeare and Robert Frost, you'll also have this archive where you have that legacy. And one additional thing before we sign off is that it's exactly what you said, where you are so proud and know that you have such dopeness in those first three, and I bet there's more. You're saying in 3 albums, but I'm certain that there's more, and even in this one that you are saving the sacred, the one that you're creating now. But one thing I tell my students is that the applause, like whenever you have a message that you are so confident in that message, that the applause is just extra. Anybody clapping and giving that to you is extra, but you have such a sound mind and awareness that you have put together such greatness. And that's what's most important for people to realize: not the likes, not the follows, not the sales, but of self. That know the ledge. You got to know the ledge. You got to know yourself and be able to be secure with self, that what you put together will last, and posthumously, as you just said with Bruce Lee and DMX, we still can learn and appreciate what they've done in their past life, even though they've gone on to glory. But that's something that will always be there. And our instincts as melanated people, with the Africanisms of our traditions, those things will always be there. They will absolutely last. So, my contribution to that is to archive.com intelligence, and welcoming you again to unpack this on the podcast again. But I'm so thankful that we took the time today to talk and to learn from you today. .com intelligence. It has definitely been an honor to speak with you on today for sure. Yes, sir.
And Melanie, I would love to come back. I know we didn't. I went into my rapper mode. I just started talking, but I mean, and the questions that we didn't get to. If you ever want to have me back on, I have no problem coming back on. Yeah, I truly appreciate the time for that. I know I was going off on tangents, but that's how my brain works. If you listen to it,
you are perfect. You are absolutely perfect.
I try to change stuff. I take
Yeah.
history. I try to like make stuff, make connections. So
Absolutely. And you did just that. Again, this is our platform. The platform are for the artists to share their stories. It's not about my voice being heard. It's about me being able to extract that excellence. So giving you a platform to share the excellence, the history of it. There's still more to be heard. And definitely the Hip Hop Scholar podcast, we will be honored to have you on here in 2026 and further on down the line. You're always welcome here on the Hip Hop Scholar podcast. So, yes, sir. So, with that, I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much. .com Intelligence. Check them out. All of the links to the SoundCloud, the Apple Music, Spotify, the Linktree. Follow him on Instagram and all of those social platforms. This is Melanie, the Hip Hop Scholar. We are out of here. Peace.
Peace.